And we have arrived, ladies and gentlemen, to our mid-season showdown grand finals here at Cyclosports in Pico Rivera. My name is Jesus Coronel, alongside me Arnie Wolf, and we have our grand finals. We obviously know Ryan Kim is in the finals because you just saw him win with that Iron Jugulis, but joining him, beating Brandon Davis, Grant Weldon in his second consecutive final, and the teams. As we're going to see Grant's perspective with Tornadus, Ogerpon Wellspring, Tornadus Incarnate, Fluttermane, Urshifu Single Strike, Farigiraf, and Heatran. And for Bryan, obviously you see the Farigiraf, Iron Jugulis, Amoonguss, Ogerpon Wellspring, Incineroar, and Ursula Blood Moon.
You know what I really like about both of these teams, and I'm going to say it, I was saying it earlier, for a draft. It is, in my opinion, one of the best Pokemon in this format. Stopping priority is huge. Trick Room, it gets up. And from my experience playing with it, it does not go down. It takes hits like crazy. And then you partner it with something like Blood Moon or Luna, you got a nice combo. But it looks like in Grant's position right now, that Farigiraf's going to be playing the anti-Trick Room, essentially. Because you look at everything on Bryan's side, relatively slow, and we know that this Ogerpon is a slower Ogerpon. So you do have the Tailwind option as well. So the kind of games, and same thing goes on Grant's side, you have Tailwind and Trick Room, so comes a guessing game what the leads are going to be.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at the both of them, I mean, yeah, we go back to Farigiraf, there are different ways to run them, and obviously it's been making waves ever since after Portland, where Priority Spam was the team to beat, and
where's Priority Spam now? It's nowhere. I mean, we've seen Dragonite, we've seen Entei, we've seen Chien-Pao, but all separately.
Yeah, and 5 seconds left to go for Bryan to lock in. The team does get the lock in here. I mean, it's good to see the unique Pokemon for this one being Tornadus and Iron Jugulis for a Tailwind mode. Yeah. And obviously you have both Farigirafs for Trick Room mode should both players want to. I mean, obviously Grant's Farigiraf is meant for a counter Trick Room, but he doesn't mind the Trick Room in a few specific instances. But here we go into the grand finals. Bryan sends out Iron Jugulis and Ursaluna coming in here, and Grant's going to send out Ogerpon and Heatran. We are going to see a booster energy proc on this Iron Jugulis, and I believe when we saw this, it was a booster energy Quark Drive for speed, and it is.
Okay, here's something interesting. What's the speed on this Ursaluna? If it is fast, if it is max speed, it will, well, it doesn't even need to be max speed to just outspeed both Ogerpon and Heatran. There's nothing that Grant can really do to avoid the Hyper Voice here. But that is costly because there's a good chance both Ogerpon and Heatran are going to take a Hyper Voice. So the question then becomes, do you switch out your Ursaluna and preserve it for later? Or do you just go full-on Hyper Voice attack?
If you have Hyper Voice here, well, it's not really going to be doing much to Heatran. It really just damages Ogerpon, so Earth Power would likely have to be the option for Grant. But obviously, Follow Me is a option for Grant, and he's going to Terra his Ogerpon for that special defense boost with the Embody aspect.
Okay, that's a very, very valid play. Especially with the Blood Moon looming. The question now becomes, how much does Blood Moon do? And whether or not Bryan went for the Earth Power or the Blood Moon. It's a mind game scenario here. It's like, which do you go... Because actually, all three moves on Ursaluna, Blood Moon, Earth Power, and Hyper Voice, you can make an argument for.
Bryan is going to Terrasilize his Ursaluna.
Okay, looks like we're going to go for that Blood Moon. It could be Hyper Voice, though. But it
also just be Terra to avoid weakness on the Ogerpon.
That is true. That's very true, because an Ivy Cudgel will KO it. But I would be surprised right now if we don't see a Tailwind coming from his Iron Jugulis.
It is Tailwind from Iron Jugulis. There it goes, setting it up for 4 turns, double the speed for Bryan. Your Ogerpon is faster at the very least, so we know this Ursaluna isn't completely invested in speed, or at least not enough to do so. And the Terra was perfect for Ursaluna, as it is going to be able to outspeed the Heatran and one-hit KO with Earth Power.
Wow, that was really, really nice there. Just a really good play for both players. What I'm now interested in is this Ogerpon just became a threat. If you're looking at Bryan's side, you're like, oh, there's not much I can do to hit it. Snarl doesn't really affect it.
I mean, you can Air Slash flinch it, maybe.
That's your best bet. Or you can switch out your Ursaluna Blood Moon into something safer, like another Ogerpon.
But in Bryan's defense, he had to go for the Terra there just so he doesn't get one-hit knocked out, because Ivy Cudgel was super effective.
It was the right play. But now you do have a target on that Ursaluna. Especially right now if you see for a draft. I personally think Urshifu Dark is not that... Actually, you know, it's also interesting looking at Grant's side. There's not much that can touch that Iron Jugulis.
I mean, yeah, there's like not a lot of full things. I mean, yes, Ivy Cudgel can touch it, so can Close Combat, but those are relatively risky moves to go for if you ignore the other slot. We are going to see Farigiraf come in here. Now, unfortunately, no priorities for here, but there's something interesting that Frant didn't do here, and it's go for Trick Room to counter the Tailwind, but I guess the question just because, do you want to risk that? Because if it backfires, it's going to backfire.
Not to mention that no matter what Bryan is still going to have one Pokemon that's fastest on the field, and there's nothing the Fridruff can do to one-hit KO Ursaluna.
You could maybe chip with Hyper Voice, maybe get a Jugulus down to a point where it can get the knockout, but I'm not too sure how okay, there's a Trick Room lock in here, and we're gonna see Iron Jugulus swap out for Bryan. In comes Ogerpon Wellspring for Bryan. That's gonna be his very own unique Fred. Ursaluna protects, so this is indirectly covering an Ivy Cudgel going into the Iron Jugulus slot, and that was not the case.
That was actually really smart regardless, because there's a little thing that Ogerpon has called a Water Absorb. And that Trick Room was a bit of a risk.
I mean, we have 2 turns to find out if it's gonna pay off.
Yeah, I think right now the idea is, if you're Bryan, you just follow me in Blood Moon. Like, that's the play, and you go for it on the Fur Draft, so that way you ensure it hits. And also, the Ogerpon's not really a huge threat right now with Follow Me. It can only go for I believe this Ogerpon has just Horn Leech. That's all it can do right now, because you risk the Follow Me. And then the question now becomes, does Hyper Voice knock out the Ursaluna Blood Moon?
Okay, we do see Follow Me coming here, and for Regrab is the first to move. Not quite enough to knock out the Ursaluna quite yet. Here comes Blood Moon. This is going to be a big amount of damage that's going into that for Regrab.
Oh my goodness.
Big beam, and that down it goes. Based on 140 power, it's very deceptively deceptively good.
Unbelievable. That just shows you Ursaluna.
I mean, it does go down to his own life force, so it's not all is lost for Grant, but
oh man.
Bryan still has a turn of Tailwind to deal with, and this could just be the Horn Leech that you are talking about because of the Water Resort, and down it goes. As soon as it comes out, not enough to knock out the Ogre, but the next one will certainly probably force a Spiky Shield, but there is a problem with that, and that's an Urshifu.
This is a game of back and forth. It's a ping-pong match, essentially. I think right now, obviously, because the Trick Room is up, looking at what Bryan could bring in, it is for a draft.
Yeah, for Regraph.
That's the play. At this point, double target onto the Urshifu. Just go for a Horn Leech. You can even go for Ivy Cudgel if you want.
I think there's a problem with that, and I believe Ogerpon outspeeds Urshifu in Trick Room. And that's leaving Urshifu being the faster Sting right now.
Although, if I'm not mistaken, Bryan's Ogerpon is not max speed. It is a slower Ogerpon. So if this Urshifu is max speed, and I believe we saw last time Grant's Ogerpon is relatively fast, then it just becomes, then Bryan's Pokemon will outspeed, and it becomes a game of which one's going to protect, because this is a Focus Sash, Detect, Urshifu Single Strike. So now it becomes, who do you Horn Leech?
If you Horn Leech Ogerpon, it gets the knockout, but you do risk Spiky Shield. But if you go Wicked Blow on it, you get the guaranteed knockout. Should you be able to get through it. And it is underspeeding both Furigiraf and Ogerpon thanks to that Tailwind that Bryan unfortunately set up. It's still going to backfire on him. And that's going to be Furigiraf still hanging in the balance. Dazzling Gleam is going to connect on both Pokemon. Will take Urshifu down to its Focus Sash. Ogerpon for Bryan did unfortunately go down to that Wicked Blow. What does Grant's Ogerpon do? It's going to be an Ivy Cudgel. Does this knock out?
I think it's going to take it, but it's not going to take it that much.
And no, it is not. Pretty bulky. Tailwind's gone. So now Grant has to play the game of outing his own Trick Room. Especially with that Iron Jugulus coming in.
Okay, here's the thing. The Jugulus, oh man, you know what the issue is that special defense boost on Ogerpon. It is scary, and it's going to basically become Jugulus versus Ogerpon, I believe. I think that I would be surprised if the Urshifu doesn't detect this turn, and so I think the ideal play is to double target onto the Ogerpon. But the thing is, the Furigiraf, it doesn't have anything that can really do to stop Ogerpon. So you just kind of hope that Air slash and Hyper Voice slash Psyshock is enough.
And yeah, we do see the Urshifu detect right now.
I mean, it's a smart play.
And do we see Psyshock come out? So this is going to probably ignore that special defense boost that it got. That's going to be half damage. Snarl comes out. Will hit the protect. Doesn't hit Ogerpon, but it is a special defense boost that he got. It does connect. Next Psyshock will at least take the knockout. Does Ogerpon take something down with it? It's just going to Horn Leech, get some HP back, and now it's a 2v1.
Not the situation you want to be in if you're Bryan.
Although, we did, I mean, I guess we don't know the Urshifu speed versus Iron Jugulus. If Urshifu is underspeeding, then I believe Grant has this in the bag, but if it doesn't, Snarl wins the game.
Is it?
Because you knock out the Urshifu, you put Ogerpon to the point where it's like, after Trick Room ends, you got its number.
Yeah, but it's the Ivy Cudgels, how much that does. It's probably a 2-hit KO, so you're playing the Air Slash Flinch game, because I think an Air Slash is a 3-hit right now. I think you Snarl if it's the Iron Jugulus. There's no question about that. And just hope that you chip enough.
Spiky Shield comes out, so we're not going to play that risk right
That's
now.
predictable. That's totally safe, too. It's a good play. It's a very good
What
play.
is the Urshifu slower? It is slower, meaning close combat is going to hit on his Iron Jungle, which is not enough for the knockout. It will lower his defenses, but that's not really going to matter. Next to the point is being at 1 hit point next to that Focus Sash. Tailwind set up. Ooh. That probably does mean Trick Room's over, but is that worth it? Because I don't think it was.
I think you need to snarl Air Slash. I think you need to play the Air Slash flinch game at this point. Just click Sucker Punch right now, and I think you're able to pick it up.
Air Slash does go into his Ogre Bond. It survives it pretty well, and that's going to be in the end of game 1. Grant on a mission right now to get first place after he got second yesterday. And a critical hit the boot.
It's Ivy Kajal, of course. But you know what? There's a couple valuable pieces of information right now that you learned if you're Bryan in game 1. 1, Psyshock does a heck of a lot onto Ogre Punch, and 2, Air Slash did about 40 damage, so which is about a quarter. So knowing that, it's like that was more than I thought it was going to do. So I think right now I would feel better going for Iron Jugulus again, but I feel like leading Ursaluna Blood Moon kind of put a target on his back too early, and looking at the teams, I think if you just play for Farigiraf and your own Ogre Pawn and then end it with Blood Moon, that combo is probably going to be a bit better. And maybe Incineroar just to round it out if you're Bryan, to make sure that you don't go down to Wicked Blow. You could also go for Amoonguss because it's always good support. That's what I think.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily the wrong thing to lead Ursaluna, but because you saw Grant lead the Ogre Pond, you kind of had the Terra there, or else it was going down. Yeah. I guess the other read you could have made was a hard call out of Ursaluna switching on to Ogre Pond to make sure they had Ursaluna later on in the battle, especially if that Trick Room backfired on Grant, which it sort of did towards the end.
A little bit, yeah. The Tailwind was really what I think did Bryan, and because we got to see the Urshifu and Ogre Pond outspeed Bryan's side, so I think
Underspeed.
Grant Speed was able to go first in Trick Room because of Bryan's Tailwind. I think that's what really was something that Grant took advantage of, was the Tailwind Trick Room combo there. But I think if you see that, if you're either one, you're like, that's not happening again. That was a one-time occurrence. You're going to adjust. I think Bryan's going to definitely adjust at least the lead. I'd be surprised to see the same lead. With Grant, though, honestly, there's so many good picks to lead with that I can make a case for anything.
Yeah, it's like all of his Pokemon are good for everything. It's just like you don't know which Pokemon you're going to cover for him. I mean, if you see Iron Jugulus and something like that Ogre Pond again, like an Ogre Pond is a switch up. I mean, sure, it threatens to Flutter Mane. What else does it? Threatens Flutter Mane and Heatran, but everything else I think brushes by it. And then Ursaluna, we saw already, is like good, but if your opponent leads Ogre Pond, it's bad.
Ooh. No Ogre Pond on Grant's side, which is interesting to me. I do think Ogre Pond helped a lot in the last matchup, but going for it, no Ogre Pond this time, maybe because Ogre Pond got the special defense Grant is hoping like, okay, I scared off the Ursaluna, we're good. But we're going to see the leads right now. It's going to be
Regraph Ogre Pond for Bryan.
Okay.
And for Grant, it's going to be Flutter Mane Single Strike Urshifu, and this is pretty bad right now for Bryan.
It's fast and slow. It is fast and slow.
I think Bryan's only play. I think realistically, if you don't want to predict something out of Grant, it's to go follow me Trick Room. I don't see anything better.
I think it's a good play though. I mean, at this point, if you do that and then Hyper Voice times, you can go for a then Dazzling Gleam plus Hyper Voice. That's probably enough to get rid of both, especially if the Ursaluna Terra is normal. And then at that point, you look at the last two and you're like, there's nothing here besides the Ogre Pond that I'm really scared of. Why not just keep that steam rolling, you know? So I think you're right. I completely agree. The Follow Me is definitely the play, and then you Trick Room. And then hope that actually Ogre Pond goes down so you can bring out your Ursaluna and start getting rid of Grant's Pokemon.
Yeah, and I guess it really just comes down to what Bryan does in this turn, because Tricker's going to be detrimental for him once we get into this team. And interesting that Grant that switches out the... Oh, I think I know what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to reverse Trick Room at an eventual turn, and Bryan's going to hard switch that Ogre Pond to Ursaluna. I think he's going to Terra Fairy that for Regraph.
I think you're right.
It is. Oh, wait, no, that's Grant. Let's go Terra Dark on the Urshifu first.
Wait a minute. Terra Dark Urshifu. Did Grant call the hard switch? Is he going to go for a Wicked Blow onto the Ursaluna slot?
I guess that's one way to take that moment, and let's see if, yeah, Terra Fairy on a Fairy Graph. I figured that was happening, but this is aggressive from Bryan, because if he gets this call correct, that's a big momentum swing in his favor.
This is really, really intense. I think And also,
this is going to decide the game, I think.
yeah, and it's worth noting safety goggles is the item on Bryan's for a draft.
Here's Wicked Blow coming out. If it goes to Ursaluna, I don't think it's going to be surviving. It is going to Ursaluna slot. How much damage is it doing? Not enough. However, this does limit Ursaluna's lasting power because of that life orb.
Yeah. Okay.
Meaning, I would assume Ursaluna has like maybe 2 turns to attack.
Becomes very interesting because you can reverse a Trick Room on Grant's side right now. However, a Blood Moon should pick up a without the Terra. I'm not sure. I think right now you just go Dazzling Gleam, Hyper Voice, and hope for the best. That's what I would do, and detect on Ursh. Or you know what? No, Dazzling Gleam, Blood Moon. I think the Urshifu is more inclined to detect. It didn't, but that's what I think. And yeah, there's the Blood Moon, and I believe it's going on preferred draft.
And 1-hit knockout.
Still. After all that, that's really important because that means the Trick Room is staying up, and there's not much that this Urshifu can do onto Bryan's for a draft. And a Dazzling Gleam is definitely going to knock it to Sash.
It is going down to Focus Sash at the very least. It's just, I mean, you gotta take the Ursaluna out of the picture right now. You gotta.
I mean, otherwise it just gets Hyper Voice off. And yeah, I think it's definitely the right play. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So Bryan at least got his benefit out of Ursaluna, but now it comes down to what else he brought. Because looking at the rest of the team, really the only Trick Room benefits are Amoonguss and Incineroar.
I think you're fine even bringing in Ogerpon. You know, especially looking at the Heatran in the back, but not knowing that's in there. But still, regardless, Ogerpon's really solid here, just in general. We know it is a slower Ogerpon. It's not full speed. It was slower in the last match than an Urshifu we saw, so I believe it's a bit bulkier. And those Ivy Cudgels are going to do a lot of damage, especially because you partner it with Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam.
Ooh, Amoonguss comes in here. That's a perfect Trick Room partner, and there's a Heatran as well, so no Terra Grass available for this Heatran, so it's very susceptible to Spore. Maybe it has to be forced to protect.
Yeah, you know, you just go for the Spore, basically. There's not much you can do else otherwise, but what's interesting is that Heatran coming in, if you, now, Bryan, you're thinking how to get rid of that, because if it is Incineroar, but I think it's Ogerpon, but if it is Incineroar, that's not good. If it is Ogerpon, you need to Spore that Heatran until Ogerpon can Ivy Cudgel it until it faints.
Here's the turn. The attack comes out from Urshifu. I think this is probably going to be a double protect.
I would imagine so.
No protect from the Heatran. It's going to go down to sleep. But at the very least, it's resistant to both Furry Griff's technical stabs right now, thanks to the Terra.
Yeah. I think the play right now for Bryan, you keep that Amoonguss in, you go for a Pollen Puff onto the Urshifu, and then you go for a hard switch on your for a draft out into whatever is your
the last Pokemon Ogerpon,
which is going to be Ogerpon. Yeah, that's what you got to do, because the Heatran could wake up right now, but I think you got to hard switch it. There is also the expiration of Trick Room that is looming, and it's not like the fur drop could go down, but it does mean that these Pokemon on Grant's side are going to be doing heavy damage onto Bryan's last Pokemon, and so I think if you're really relying on Sleep Luck and that Ogerpon getting rid of that Heatran.
And we are going to see the Furry swap up for that Ogerpon, so it does have at least a safety blink if it can survive the turn. And I think there's a way that it can. Urshifu's going to swap out as well to preserve its longevity for another Wicked Blow later on in the game. Flutter Mane is revealed to be the last Pokemon for... Oh, wait, no, it was already here. Spore!
The hard switch was called. That is very important. The question is now, does Heatran wake up?
Does it wake up? It does not. Second turn of sleep comes in. Trick Room is still up for one more turn, meaning he has another chance to go for Wake Up Heat Wave. And if Ogerpon, I mean, if it stays to sleep another turn, I think Ogerpon just Ivy Cudgels the Heatran into knockout. And Amoonguss going to swap back out into Farigiraf, knowing that danger.
That is the play. That is the play. And you know what? It's really nice. I think that Farigiraf can...
And that's a third turn of sleep, unfortunately, for that Heatran.
I think that's it. I think Bryan's in a really safe position. Even if the Ogerpon did go down, as long as it took one Heat Wave, it would have been enough. And because all you need is to get rid of the Heatran, because the last two Pokemon in the back, the Urshifu cannot hit for a draft, and Flutter Mane is booster energy, so it's not going to be able to do too much on the first draft, and so you're able to go for another Trick Room on that next turn, and then Amoonguss can put things to sleep, and then you can win with that. So I think as long as you got rid of that Heatran, you just put yourself in that winning position, and that's exactly what Bryan did.
And there we go. Farigiraf and Ogeron still at full HP. I mean, that turn one really decided the game. I mean, yes, Grant got the call correct, but I think we underestimated how bulky Ursaluna was.
Yeah, I mean... It's insane. It is insane. And I've been saying it and thinking it as I've been practicing on Showdown. We see so many things for Draft Ursaluna. It adapts to anything.
Oh, Flutter Mane wakes up here. This is interesting as Moonblast goes into the redirected Ogerpon, and that doesn't even do half.
it doesn't really matter at this point. If you get your Trick Room up, then you're able to put the Flutter Mane to sleep and just keep going.
There's a Wicked Blow. It is knocking out the Ogerpon, so it is a sacrificial effort to get this Trick Room up. Ogerpon dedicating it to Follow Me to get reroute that all-important Trick Room and gets it up. Amoonguss is still in the back. It can start scoring again, and I think the writing's on the wall, and we got a Game 3 Grand Final.
Yeah, I think right now all you got to do is click Spore and Flutter Mane and click Dazzling Gleam, and you have fun. One thing I do also want to point out, which I really like on this for a draft set from Bryan, is its Psyshock, which is something that I know we've already seen, but it means that this Flutter Mane is very susceptible to damage because it's going to use its physical defense stat, which is not very good. So at this point, I think you could just forfeit. There's not much that you could, there's like literally nothing you could do with your Grant right now except hope for very good like protect luck with stalling out the Trick Room, but that's going to be quite impossible.
Yeah, we've talked about him. He's going to take his first turn of sleep here. You cannot go for Sucker Punch thanks to that Armor Tail. Pollen Puff will knock out Urshifu. Psyshock might be able to take the Flutter Mane from this range. Urshifu tries to go for a double attack, doesn't get it, unfortunately. Clear Smog, actually, going to come out in this Urshifu, going to eliminate all stat changes before it goes down.
It goes from no stat changes to no stat changes. But that does free up a free Psyshock now from Bryan's for a draft onto Grant's Flutter Mane. And there it is.
It doesn't knock out though. I've seen Flutter Mane survive these kind of hits before because for you guys, sometimes I'm not training with a special bulk, and it does survive at the very least. Another turn of sleep for Flutter Mane. It's been busy today.
Yeah, let it rest. It's been a long day. There's the forfeit. So we're going to game 3.
I mean, Flutter Mane is just, most of Grant's teams had a lot of sleep, a lot of work to do, and perhaps they needed a lullaby.
You know, it felt like it. And you know what? Grant has been working very hard. So has Bryan to get to the finals. This is the 9th round these players have played today. So it is a tiring day. If you're not prepped to play Pokemon for literally, we're going on to the 7th hour today, then it is a very draining game. But one thing I want to point out is both Grant and Bryan have been making amazing calls, even 7 hours later. Huge props to them. Huge props to them. They are fantastic players. But we're going to go into game 3. Do you think there's going to be any lean changes?
I think there might be one from Grant. He's been leading differently every game he's been on the stream. You know, he loves to throw his opponents off guard. You know, he always tries to change his game plan. He didn't have the wrong game plan per se. It's more so like he did get the calls correct. It's like he didn't have the right situation that he wanted.
Yeah, I think this is an ideal leading for a draft because you do threaten Imprison. There's not anything really that Bryan can do to stop that, especially if it Terras to fire. You could lead. The only thing that I can think of that would stop that combo would be Incineroar plus Ogerpon, but even then you're threatened by the Urshifu. So I think, but I actually don't. I think Bryan's going to go for the exact same lead we saw in the last game. It worked once. I think he's going to think it's going to work again. Wouldn't be surprised to see Ogerpon for a draft too, but we're going to see either Ogerpon Blood Moon or Ogerpon for a draft. That's my guess. I think it's the safest bet too.
I mean, it certainly sounds like it. I mean, yes, we do. I think this might be the time that for Regref for Grant might actually have a time to shine. We use that in prison.
Yeah. And one thing I really do like is it just in prison shuts down any Trick Room. And at that point, that's what we saw really win Bryan the game was Trick Room. And the Blood Moon from Ursaluna, that is very valuable information that the Blood Moon does KO for a draft on Grant's side without the Terra. Doesn't need the Terra. So if you can position yourself right, you can get rid of it and then set your own Trick Room. So maybe we'll see like for a draft in the back for Bryan's side. But this is one of those things where, like you said, it's going to come down to the very first turn. That could determine the whole game.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have one game left to decide a grand champion. This midseason showdown. Grant looking for revenge after getting second place in the Premier Challenge yesterday. And for Regrep, Ogerpon going to be the lead once again for Bryan. Grant switching it up once again further. It's going to be Urshifu for Regrap. We got two giraffes staring at each other, and we have an ogre and a bear.
This is an interesting one. I think ideally you have to click Imprison, but at the same time that's a bit scary because you can't imprison the Dazzling Gleam. The question now becomes, again, Imprison shenanigans. Are you going to go for it? Are you going to go for the knockout on Ogerpon, but then that lets the for a draft go for the Trick Room right away? I think ideally you just click Imprison and then, like we saw, the Wicked Blow into the Ogerpon. That's the safest bet, and at that point you're going to be able to steamroll as long as you keep your own for a draft safe.
And here comes the turn one play. Grant's going to terrestrialize early on with his Urshifu. He's pretty confident in it and is doing the most damage I possibly can.
If Bryan predicted this and went for a double attack, that is going to be pretty scary. But I actually think I think, wow, I could see it. That's that tough part.
Terrestrialization comes out from Bryan. We do know that Urshifu is at least faster than this Farigiraf, but I'll be surprised if this is Ogerpon, but no, this is Farigiraf to Fairy, so either this means that Dazzling is going to get boosted, or we're going to see it potentially predict the Wicked Blow to going that way. Yeah,
I think regardless, you kind of have to. With Urshifu on the field, you have to sacrifice a Terra, and there it is.
Wicked Blow goes into the Ogerpon. Here comes the damage. Not enough for the one-hit knockout, even for the critical hit. Ivy Coastal goes into Grant's Farigiraf, does over half damage. Imprison comes out, so Trick Room's not an option anymore for Bryan if he went for it, and he goes for Nasty Plot.
Whoa, that's big. That is very big. Good news, bad news. Good news, you have Nasty Plot.
Bad news, he can't Trick Room.
Yeah, he can't Trick Room. And also the Urshifu will survive for the turn, because the Ogerpon, it is just, yeah, it's not in the spot it wants to be in. It's just going down. I actually think we may see a switch. No, I think right now you just kind of leave your Ogerpon sacrificed. And I think for Grant, you switch out into Heatran. Not much. Farigiraf can't really do anything on the Heatran. Psyshock, it resists. Dazzling Gleam, it resists. So, and then you're free to go for Flash Cannons onto it. So I think, ideally, Farigiraf wants to get out of here. Could Hyper Voice, that's fine. But this Heatran's really going to be key to getting rid of that Nasty Plot Farigiraf.
Yeah, and Ogerpon going to switch out. Does he have any? I mean, I guess Ogerpon's a resist, but because Amoonguss, this is an interesting switch in because I mean, Amoonguss is more bulkier, which is beneficial for Bryan at this very moment. You don't really need to trick him to do what it wants, and that's a lot of damage that Amoonguss is going to get the Citrus Berry, but I don't know how long it's going to be lasting.
Yeah, that is another Wicked Blow's going to pick up the KO here.
Hyper Voice coming out. Okay, Amoonguss at least survives that turn. Dazzling Gleam comes out at a +2, plus the Terra boost. Then it has that same type of attack bonus going that way. Farigiraf goes down, Urshifu goes down to the Sash, Imprison's gone. Grant has a new situation in hand.
Grant is looking really safe right now because you have Heatran in the back, which is fantastic. Free Flash Cannon onto the opposing Farigiraf. Not much it can do. I think we're going to see Bryan switch out, or you can't. The thing is, you can't protect. You can't Trick Room because the Imprison is gone. However, but then it becomes whether or not you survive a Flash Cannon, and I think that's going to be the deciding factor. Can Bryan get the Trick Room up? Because an obvious Rage Powder, I think, is going to be coming out now. But the question now is, do you survive a Flash Cannon from Heatran? If you do, you're going to be able to get your Blood Moon or Luna in and start going for those attacks. But if not, it's over.
Yeah, it basically gets to whether or not that Life Force gets a knockout, because you are able to redirect the attack from Urshifu at the very least, but that's not really helping the cause out of Heatran. And Bryan's really taking his time to think about this. This is a tough position to be in. It's just like, this is the thing, do you want to go for the Rage Powder? Oh, that's an interesting switch out. If this is Ogerpon, okay, so you're sacrificing that in order to get Farigiraf a turn. Wicked Blow comes out. This is to do Amoonguss. This is really bad. This is doing Amoonguss, so down goes that. Flash Cannon should be able to pick up the Ogerpon from that range, and Bryan will be going down to a 3v2.
I don't like that switch in. I think you really just kind of hoped that Heatran doesn't get rid of your Farigiraf, because at that point, you really need to rely on his Blood Moon or Luna. And actually, what's really scary about that, it's going to go down to a close combat most likely. So there is really nothing you can do except hope that Flash Cannon, like, no matter what situation, you just got to hope Flash Cannon doesn't KO.
Yeah, we do see Ursaluna as Bryan's last Pokemon in here alongside his Farigiraf. Both Pokemon are really slow, so yeah, Bryan has a choice to make, and neither of them sound lookable. And I think we may be crowning a brand new champion.
There's one thing that can happen, and I don't know. This Ursaluna may have some speed investment. If it's enough to outspeed the Heatran and pick up an Earth Power on it, that means Ursaluna, I think Ursaluna does survive the close combat with a couple HP, and if you can get that, it means Farigiraf's going to be able to go up right away, but then it becomes a matter of Life Orb. So there's a very slight chance Bryan can pick this one
Battle is canceled. Lance Weldon wins the midseason showdown. He just got his world's ticket punched in, and now he can celebrate an MSS. Unfortunately, the crowd did not have a Reggie Drago, but he got it done nonetheless.
Whew. That was brilliant playing. I mean, the Heatran coming in, that's as soon as you see that, Bryan's like, what do I do? Because Terra the Fairy thinks the Urshifu, and then Heatran's able to just go for it. But one thing, these cores, when you look at these amazing cores, the Trick Room and Tailwind combo, Imprison becoming a big thing because Farigiraf is big right now, it's a really wonderfully crafted team by Grant, and it showed that he knows how to play it.
Yeah, and this is something that's going to be taken note because we've seen Ogrepon and Freecraft win in both different perspectives, both regionals and locals, and you gotta expect a whole lot of them coming up, especially with the I forget the GC from online
Global Challenge. Yeah,
Global Challenge. There you go. That was the name.
If I'm not mistaken, is this week.
You got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to get 45 battles in and do the best you can. Remember, championship points are on the line if you're willing to do it.
Yeah, and this could be the deciding factor of whether or not you get in or not to Worlds. Who knows? If you're up by like 40 points, you could really succeed here and punch your tickets. So make sure you do that.
And we like to thank everyone here watching on twitch.tv/PalGaming, as well as the people who have donated. I see on the screen $320. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get to that $500 goal, but we're benefiting Child's Play, the charity that we're helping to at least get a lot of these. I guess I don't have the information. Oh well.
Well, we know that Child's Play, they are able to donate video games and video game consoles to children in need. It's a wonderful thing because you can give someone happiness for just a few dollars, and so definitely make sure you can donate in the chat. You can. I do it wrong every time. I'm always over here. No, the QR code right here. You can scan that and donate. I've done it 3 for 3 times on the opposite side. Scan the QR code. You can donate. We always appreciate what you can do. There you first try. First try.
Don't worry. That's going to be doing it for us today at Pico Rivera, California. We'll be back in 2 weeks for 2 more Premier Challenges as another doubleheader is alongside our future in February. Until then, this has been Pal Gaming Production. This has been Downey Wolf. This has been Jesus Coronel. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. We'll see you then.